The sky turned strange that day. People all over Earth looked up and saw the same thing. A massive ship hanging in the air, dark against the blue sky. It stayed there, silent, for 3 whole days. Han sat in his small office at Seoul University, watching the news like everyone else. Unlike most people, he wasn't afraid. He was excited. As a linguist who studied ancient languages, this was the moment he had prepared for his whole life. "Han, are you watching this?" Day burst into the office. Without knocking, his friend's eyes were wide with excitement. Day worked with computers and machines, always building things Han couldn't understand. "Of course I am," Han said, pointing to his screen. "The whole world is watching." The news showed the same images over and over. The ship, the panicked people, and the world leaders trying to look brave. Han's phone rang. He didn't recognize the number. "Professor Han, this is Commander G from the Korean Defense Intelligence Command. We need you to come to Seoul Station immediately. Bring anything you might need to communicate with visitors." Han looked at Dai, then back at his phone. "Why me? You're the best linguist in the country. The president asked for you specifically." 2 hours later, Han sat in a large room with people from many countries. Some wore military uniforms, others wore suits. Commander G stood near Han, her back straight and her face serious. "They've sent a message," G said. "They want to meet representatives from Earth. You're going to be part of our team." Han nodded, his mouth dry. "Do we know anything about them?" "They call themselves the Viridians, that's all we know." President Min entered the room and everyone stood up. "Sit, please," she said. She looked tired but determined. "The Viridians have agreed to meet us tomorrow. They will send 10 representatives. We will do the same. Mr. Han, you will be there to help us understand them." Han nodded, trying to look confident. That night, Han couldn't sleep. He packed and repacked his bag, translation software, books on language patterns, his old notebooks. Nothing seemed right for meeting aliens. The next morning, Han, Commander G, Dae, who had been brought in as a tech specialist, and 7 others, waited at the meeting site, a large open field outside Seoul. "Remember," G told the team, "we represent all humans today. Be respectful, but strong." A small ship descended from the larger one. It landed silently on the grass. The door opened, and the Viridians stepped out. They were tall, at least 7 feet, with skin that shimmered like oil on water. Their eyes were large and completely black. They walked with a grace that made them seem like they were floating. One Viridian stepped forward. "I am Arak, speaker for the Viridian Collective." The words came from a small device on its chest, translating its clicks and whistles into English. President Min stepped forward. "I am Min, President of South Korea representing Earth. We welcome you in peace." Arak looked down at Min. When it spoke, its voice had a tone that reminded Han of an adult speaking to a small child. "How charming. Your world is quite primitive, but we find it interesting. We have watched your development for some time." Han watched carefully, noting everything about their visitors, the way they moved, the sounds they made, their body language. Something felt familiar about their speech patterns even through the translator. The groups moved to a tent set up for the meeting. The Viridian sat across from the humans at a long table. "We come to offer you protection," Arak said. "Your solar system sits at the edge of a dangerous region of space. There are others who would not be as gentle as we are." "What kind of protection?" Commander G asked, her voice careful and neutral. "We would establish a presence here, a small outpost. In exchange, we would require access to some of your resources. Nothing you would miss. Water from your oceans, minerals from your untapped deposits." President Min nodded politely. "That is a generous offer. We would need to discuss it with other world leaders." "Of course," Arak said, making a gesture that might have been a smile. "You are young. You need time to understand what we offer." As the meeting continued, Han noticed something odd. When the Viridians spoke among themselves, they used different sounds than when they spoke to their translation devices. These sounds, Clicks, whistles, and deep hums seemed to follow a pattern Han recognized. When there was a break in the talks, Han whispered to Day, "Can you record their private conversations? There's something familiar about it." Day nodded and adjusted something on his tablet. The meeting lasted for hours. The Viridians explained their proposal in more detail. They wanted control of Earth's orbital space, access to the oceans, and rights to mine the moon. In exchange, they would give appropriate technology to humans and protect Earth from unnamed threats. Throughout the meeting, the Viridians were polite but clearly thought themselves superior. They used words like quaint and primitive when describing Earth's cities and technology. They seemed amused by human questions. "You are like children," Iraq said at one point, "asking about things you cannot possibly understand. It is, what is your word? Cute." When the meeting ended, both sides agreed to meet again in 3 days. The Viridians returned to their ship. Back at the command center, Han immediately asked, "For the recordings of the Viridians' private conversations, what are you looking for?" G asked. "I'm not sure yet," Han said. "But their ceremonial language, the sounds they made when talking to each other, reminds me of something I've studied." Han took the recordings to a small office they had given him. He worked through the night comparing the sounds to every language in his database. Nothing matched exactly, but there were patterns that seemed familiar. At 3 a.m., Han had a thought. He pulled out his old books on pre-modern languages, ones no one had spoken for thousands of years. He found what he was looking for in a dusty volume about a mysterious language found on ancient tablets in Central Asia. "It can't be," he whispered to himself. Han played the recordings again, this time comparing them to the reconstructed sounds of the ancient language. The similarities were striking, not exact matches but clearly related like distant cousins. He called Day and G. "You need to see this," Han said when they arrived, eyes red from lack of sleep. "The Viridian ceremonial language shares patterns with a language spoken on Earth around 7,000 years ago, a language we thought was dead." G looked skeptical. "What are you saying? That these aliens have been here before?" "Or," Han said, his voice shaking with excitement, "we share a common ancestor. Either way, this changes everything about how we approach them." D looked at the comparisons Han had made. "Are you sure about this?" Han nodded. "I'm still analyzing, but the basic patterns are too similar to be coincidence." Commander G stood up straight. "I'm going to call the president. If you're right, Han, this could give us leverage we didn't know we had." As G left the room, Han turned back to his work. The Viridians thought humans were primitive and weak, but what would happen when humans spoke to them in the dead language of their ancestors? Han smiled and kept working. He had 3 days to find out. Han had not slept in 30 hours. His eyes burned, but he couldn't stop. Spread across his desk were printouts of sound waves, ancient texts, and notes written in his messy handwriting. On his computer screen, the recordings of the Viridians played on loop. "You need to rest," Day said, placing a cup of coffee next to Han. "I can't," Han replied, not looking up. "The next meeting is in 2 days. I need to be sure." Commander G entered the room with a woman Han didn't know. She had gray hair and glasses that sat low on her nose. "Han, this is Professor Sun," G said. "She's an expert in pre-modern languages." Sun nodded at Han. "Commander G told me about your theory. I was skeptical until I heard the recordings." Han stood up quickly, nearly knocking over his coffee. "You see it too?" "The patterns are unmistakable," Sun said. She pointed to Han's screen. "May I?" Sun sat down and played the recordings again. She made notes as she listened, sometimes nodding to herself. "It's not exactly the same," she said, finally. "But it's like hearing someone speak Old English. You can hear the connection to modern English even if you can't understand all the words." "So I'm right?" Han asked. "The Viridian ceremonial language is connected to this ancient Earth language?" "It appears so," Sun said. "The question is how." While Han and Sun worked, the world leaders met to discuss the Viridians' offer. Most were afraid to say no to beings with such advanced technology. Others were angry at the idea of giving away Earth's resources. In another part of the building, Tay, Earth's top military strategist, prepared plans in case things went wrong. He didn't trust the Viridians. "They look at us like we're insects," Tay told G when she visited his office. "I don't like it. Focus on defense only," G reminded him. "We can't afford to appear hostile." Back in Han's office, Sun had brought in her own books and computer. Together they pieced together phrases from the ancient language. It was hard work. The language was only partially reconstructed from tablets found decades ago in a remote cave. "What do we call this language?" Day asked, watching them work. "Scholars call it Proto-Asiatic," Sun explained. "It predates most known language families. Some think it might be the ancestor of many modern Asian languages, but it's so old that the connections are hard to prove." Han pointed to his screen. "But now we have living speakers to study. The Viridians are using a version of it in their ceremonial speech." "Not exactly," Sun corrected. "Their version has evolved differently. It's like two branches of the same tree that grew in different directions." President Min called a meeting that evening. Han and Sun presented their findings to her, and a small group of advisors. "Let me understand this clearly," Min said, her face serious. "You believe the Viridians share a language connection with humans from thousands of years ago?" "Yes," Han said. "The evidence suggests either they visited Earth long ago and influenced our early language development or, Min prompted. "Or both our species were influenced by someone else," Sun finished. "A third party that contacted both humans and Viridians in the distant past." The room was quiet as everyone considered this idea. "Can you speak this language?" Min asked finally. "Not fluently," Han admitted. "We've reconstructed some phrases based on the ancient tablets and what we heard from the Viridians, but our pronunciation might be wrong." "I want you to learn as much as you can before the next meeting," Min said. "This could be important." That night, Arak requested an emergency meeting with President Min. Only Min, Ji, and Han were allowed to attend. Arak arrived with 2 other Viridians. They seemed impatient. "We notice your people are stalling," Arak said. Its voice, through the translator, sounded cold. "This is not wise. Our offer of protection is generous, but our patience has limits." "We're not stalling," Min said calmly. "We're discussing your proposal with other world leaders. This affects everyone on Earth." Arak made a sound that the translator didn't catch. Han noticed it was one of their ceremonial language sounds. "Your planet faces threats you cannot imagine," Arak said. "Without our help, you will not survive what is coming." "What threats?" Ji asked. "Can you be more specific?" "That is not your concern," Arak replied. "You should focus on accepting our help while it is still offered." Han watched Arak closely. When it spoke to the other Viridians, it used the ceremonial language again. Han recognized a pattern he and Sun had studied, something that might mean simple ones or children. After the Viridians left, Han rushed back to Sun. They worked through the night trying to prepare something, anything, that might help at the main meeting tomorrow. By morning, Han had memorized several phrases in the ancient language. His pronunciation was uncertain, but he hoped it would be close enough. Ji found him practicing in front of a mirror. "Will this work?" she asked. "I don't know," Han admitted. "But they clearly don't respect us. Maybe this will change that." "Or make them angry," Ji warned. "Maybe," Han said, "but something isn't right about their offer. They're hiding something." The next day, all the major world leaders gathered for the second meeting with the Viridians. The meeting room was larger this time, with screens showing the faces of leaders who couldn't attend in person. The Viridians arrived in greater numbers. Arak led a group of 12 others. They seemed more formal today, wearing what looked like ceremonial robes with symbols Han didn't recognize. "We have considered your request for time," Arak began, "but we must insist on an answer today. The dangers approaching your system will not wait for your politics." "We appreciate your concern," President Min said, "but we need to understand more about these dangers and what exactly your protection entails." Arak made a dismissive gesture. "The details are beyond your understanding. Your technology is too primitive to grasp the forces involved. The leader of another country spoke up. If you want our resources, we deserve to know why. Want? Arak said, its voice suddenly sharp. We do not want your resources. We are offering you survival. Without us, your species has no future. The tension in the room grew. Han looked at President Min, who nodded slightly. Han stood up. His heart beat fast, but he kept his voice steady. He spoke the words he had practiced, words not heard on Earth for 7,000 years. Veridim karatha nost entus, he said carefully. The effect was immediate. Every Viridian froze. Their skin changed color slightly, darkening around their necks. What did you say? Arak asked, its translator voice suddenly unsteady. Han repeated the phrase, which meant roughly, we speak as equals, under the sky. The Viridians began talking rapidly among themselves in their ceremonial language. They seemed upset, confused. Arak turned to Han. How do you know the divine tongue? No primitive species should know these words. Han met Arak's black eyes. This language was spoken on our world thousands of years ago. We have records of it. Impossible, Arak said, but it sounded uncertain now. We have more questions for you, Han continued. About your history, about why you really came to Earth. Arak stared at Han for a long moment. Then it turned to the other Viridians and spoke rapidly. Without another word to the humans, they left the room. As the door closed behind them, the room erupted in questions. What just happened? Someone asked. Han looked at Sun, who appeared as shocked as he felt. I think, Han said slowly, we just changed the game. Outside, the Viridian's small ship lifted off, returning to the mothership above. The talks had ended, abruptly, but Han knew they would be back. He had spoken their sacred language, and nothing would be the same again. 3 days passed with no word from the Viridians. Their massive ship still hung in the sky, but all attempts to contact them failed. The world waited, worried about what would happen next. In a secure building in Seoul, Han and Sun worked without rest. They had been given a team of researchers and all the resources they needed. President Min visited often, asking for updates. We're making progress, Han told her during one visit. We can now form basic sentences in the ancient language. Good, Min said. But we need to understand why they reacted so strongly. What did you actually say to them? I said, we speak as equals under the sky, Han explained. It was a formal greeting from the ancient tablets. I didn't expect that reaction. Something about that phrase hit a nerve, Sun added. They called it the divine tongue. That suggests it has religious or cultural importance to them. Commander, I entered the room with Tae, who looked worried. The Viridians are moving, Ji announced. Their mothership has changed position, and we're detecting smaller ships entering Earth's atmosphere. Are they attacking? Min asked, standing quickly. No, Tae said. They're taking up positions around major cities, 20 ships in total. Min looked out the window. Sure enough, a Viridian ship now hovered over Seoul, smaller than the mothership but still impressive and frightening. They're trying to scare us, Min said, to pressure us into accepting their terms. Or they're preparing for something worse, Tae added darkly. Han's phone beeped. He looked at the message and his eyes widened. They want to talk, he said. But not to world leaders. They're asking for me specifically. Everyone looked at Han. Why you? Ji asked. I think we all know why, Sun said. He spoke their sacred language. President Min made the decision quickly. Han will meet them, but not alone. Commander Ji and Professor Sun will go with him, and I want you all wearing cameras and microphones. The meeting was set for that afternoon at the same location as before. This time, when the Viridian's ship landed, more of them emerged. Arak led the group, but now there were older Viridians with elaborate markings on their skin. Han, Ji, and Sun waited nervously. Han had spent the morning memorizing more phrases in the ancient language, hoping he wouldn't make a mistake. Arak approached, stopping a few feet away. For a long moment it simply stared at Han. How does a primitive species know the divine tongue? Arak asked finally. Han swallowed hard. It was spoken on our world many thousands of years ago. We found records of it in ancient caves. Impossible, one of the older Viridians said. The divine tongue was given only to the chosen ones by the ancestors. Han looked at Sun, who nodded encouragingly. He spoke carefully in the ancient language, Endar Visul Norath Kemin. The words meant, knowledge flows like water through time. The Viridians made sounds of shock. The older ones moved forward, studying Han closely. You speak it poorly, one said. But you do speak it. Ji stepped forward. We want to understand this connection between our peoples. We believe it could help us form a better relationship than the one you proposed. Arak seemed to be struggling with something. This changes nothing. Your world still needs our protection. From what? Han asked, this time in English. You never told us what dangers we face. The older Viridians spoke among themselves in their own language, not the divine tongue. Then one turned to Han. I am Elder Mira, she said through her translator. What you have done is troubling. The divine tongue is sacred to our people. Only those descended from the ancestors may speak it. The ancestors? Sun asked. Who were they? The ones who made us, Mira said simply. They gave us life, knowledge, and purpose. They shaped us from simple creatures into what we are now. Han felt a chill. These ancestors, did they look like us or like you? The question seemed to bother the Viridians. They spoke quickly among themselves again. Neither, Mira said finally. They were more. They left our world 10,000 cycles ago. They promised to return. And the divine tongue is their language? Han asked. Yes, Mira replied. They taught it to our ancestors. It is the language of creation. Han looked at Sun, who seemed as excited as he felt. This confirmed their theory. Both humans and Viridians had been influenced by the same third species. We believe these ancestors visited Earth too, Han said. They taught some humans their language just as they taught your people. No, Arak said sharply. The ancestors chose only the Viridians. That is our most sacred belief. Then how do we know their language? Ji asked. The question hung in the air. The Viridians had no answer. Han decided to take a risk. He spoke in the ancient language again, this time a longer phrase. Endar Chorus Velim Santhar, Andar Novus Kalim Vanthar. It meant, roughly, we share one sky above, we walk one path below. The effect was powerful. Several Viridians stepped back. Elder Mira made a strange gesture with her hands, almost like a prayer. That is from the first teaching, she said, her translator voice sounding shaken. The words the ancestors spoke when they created the first Viridians. We found similar words in our ancient texts, Sun said. Words carved in stone 7,000 years ago. For the first time since they arrived, the Viridians seemed uncertain. Their superior attitude was gone, replaced by confusion and what looked like fear. This must be reported to the High Council, Mira said. We must consult the sacred texts. We ask that you remove your ships from our cities while we talk, Ji said firmly. They make our people afraid. Arak started to object, but Mira raised her hand to stop him. It will be done, she said. We need time to understand this. Development. As they turned to leave, Han called out one more phrase in the ancient language. Veldar Korath Imdar Nusvin. The words meant, truth waits for those who seek it. Mira turned back. Yes, she said simply, it does. The Viridians returned to their ship. Within an hour, all the smaller ships around Earth cities had returned to the mothership. Back at the command center, President Min listened to the recording of the meeting. You did well, she told Han. But this is just the beginning. What happens now? Han asked. Now we prepare, Min said. They'll be back and they'll have questions. We need answers. We need to find out more about these ancestors, Sun said. If they visited both Earth and the Viridian world, there might be more evidence here that we haven't found yet. Han nodded. And we need to learn more of the divine tongue. It's our strongest connection to them. That night, as Han finally slept after days of work, the Viridian ship moved away from Earth orbit. It took position near the moon, still visible, but no longer threatening. A message came from the ship. We will return in 7 days. Prepare your knowledge of the ancestors. The High Council wishes to know all that you have learned. The game had changed. Humans were no longer the primitive species the Viridians had first judged them to be. Now they were potential relatives, sharing a mysterious connection to beings who had shaped both their worlds thousands of years ago. Han slept deeply, dreaming of ancient words and the stars. 7 days passed quickly. Around the world, teams of researchers worked day and night, gathering all known information about the ancient language and the mysterious civilization that might have spoken it. Han led the linguistic team, while a famous archaeologist named June headed the historical research. Look at this, June said, showing Han a tablet covered in strange markings. They were in a large room filled with artifacts from around the world. This was found in underwater ruins, off the coast of Japan. The symbols match ones found in India, and even parts of Europe. Han studied the tablet. Some of the symbols were similar to the writing found with the Proto-Asiatic language. How old is it? Han asked. At least 9,000 years, June replied. That's older than any civilization we thought existed on Earth. Commander Ji entered the room with President Min. Both looked tired but determined. The Viridians will be here in 3 hours, Ji announced. Their main ship is moving back to Earth orbit. Are we ready? Min asked, looking at the artifacts spread around the room. As ready as we can be, Han said. We've prepared a presentation showing all the evidence of this ancient connection, and I've learned more of the divine tongue. Good, Min said, because they're bringing their highest leaders this time. The High Council itself is coming to Earth. Everyone felt the weight of this news. This wasn't just a diplomatic meeting anymore. It was a meeting that could change both species forever. The Viridians landed in a new ship, larger and more impressive than before. 20 Viridians emerged, led by Arak and Elder Mira. But behind them came 5 others, wearing elaborate robes with glowing symbols. These were the High Council members, the most important Viridians. The meeting took place in a large hall prepared specially for this occasion. The human team included Han, Sun, June, Ji, President Min, and leaders from other countries. One of the High Council members stepped forward. Its skin had a golden tone that the other Viridians didn't have. I am Sev, head of the High Council, it said through its translator. We have come to hear your claims about the ancestors and the divine tongue. Han stepped forward. Thank you for coming. We have prepared evidence of our shared history. For the next 2 hours, Han and June presented everything they had found. They showed the ancient tablets, the linguistic connections, and the strange similarities between early human and Viridian development. These symbols appear on both our worlds, June explained, pointing to markings that matched ones the Viridians wore. They're thousands of years old on Earth. The Viridians listened silently, but Han could see they were affected by the evidence. The High Council members sometimes spoke quietly among themselves. When the presentation ended, Sev spoke again. For 10,000 cycles, we have believed we were the only children of the ancestors. Our entire civilization is built on this belief. If what you say is true, it changes everything, Elder Mira finished. But we must be certain. Another council member spoke. There is a test. The Temple of First Light contains the purest record of the divine tongue. If these humans truly share our connection to the ancestors, they will be able to read the sacred wall. Sev considered this. Very well. We will take 1 human to the temple. I'll go, Han said immediately. No, Sun said. We should both go. 2 perspectives are better than 1. After some discussion, it was agreed that Han and Sun would travel to the Viridian ship orbiting Earth. They would be taken to a special chamber that contained records of the original divine tongue. Before they left, Ji pulled Han aside. "Be careful," she said. "We're still not sure of their true intentions." "I think they're as confused as we are," Han replied. "They're questioning everything they believed about themselves." The journey to the Viridian ship took less than an hour. Han and Sun stared in wonder at the inside of the alien vessel. It was beautiful, with flowing lines and soft light that seemed to come from everywhere. Mira led them to a circular room at the center of the ship. The walls were covered in symbols that glowed slightly. "This is a replica of the sacred wall from our home world," Mira explained. "Only those with the blood of the ancestors can read these words." Han and Sun approached the wall. The symbols were similar to those they had studied, but more complex. "Can you read it?" Mira asked, watching them closely. Han focused on the symbols. Some he recognized, others were new. He spoke slowly, trying to pronounce the words correctly. "Veldar, North, Candace. Serim," he said. "Andar, Kalith, Vornus, Miriam." The Viridians in the room made sounds of surprise. Even Mira seemed shocked. "What did I say?" Han asked, turning to them. "The first words of creation," Mira said, her translator voice barely a whisper. "From darkness comes light. From silence comes word." Sun tried next, reading a different section. Her pronunciation was better than Han's, and she read longer phrases. With each word, the Viridians seemed more amazed. "How is this possible?" Arak asked. "They read the sacred words as if they were taught by the ancestors themselves," Sev finished. The head of the council approached Han and Sun. "There can be no doubt now. Somehow your species also carries the gift of the ancestors." Han felt a mixture of excitement and fear. "Does this mean we are related somehow?" "Not directly," Mira said. "But we share a connection through the ancestors. They must have visited both our worlds." "Why did they leave?" Sun asked. "And who were they?" Sev made a gesture that might have been sadness. "The ancient texts say they came from far beyond the stars. They found many worlds with simple life, and they helped that life grow. Then, when their work was done, they moved on. But they promised to return," Mira added. "That is our most sacred belief. One day the ancestors will come back to see what their children have become." Han thought about this. "So both our species are waiting for the same beings to return?" "Yes," Sev said. "But we believed we were their only children. Now we know that was wrong." The implications of this revelation were enormous. The Viridians had based their entire civilization on the idea that they were special, the only chosen ones of the ancestors. Now they had to accept that humans shared this connection. "What happens now?" Han asked. Sev looked at the other council members before answering. "Now we must rethink everything. Our purpose in coming to your world was to claim it as our own, believing it was our right as the children of the ancestors." "And now?" Sun asked. "Now we must consider that you have the same right to exist as we do," Sev said. "This will not be easy for many of our people to accept." When Han and Sun returned to Earth, they brought with them copies of the Viridian sacred texts. The High Council had decided to share their knowledge with humans. Something unthinkable, just days before. "They're not leaving yet," Han told President Min. "But they've changed their approach completely. They want to learn from us as much as we want to learn from them." Min looked relieved but cautious. "Can we trust this change?" "I think so," Sun said. "They're experiencing a cultural shock even greater than ours. Their entire identity was based on being the chosen ones of the ancestors. And now they have to share that position with us," Han added, "with beings they thought were primitive." "Humans," Ji said with a small smile. "The species they laughed at." "Until we spoke the dead language of their ancestors," Han finished. "The world had changed. Humans were no longer alone in the universe, and they were no longer at the bottom of the cosmic ladder. They had earned a place of respect by connecting to a past so ancient it was almost forgotten. The Viridians and humans had much to learn from each other, and perhaps, together, they might finally understand the true nature of the mysterious ancestors who had shaped them both. 1 year had passed since the Viridians first came to Earth. The giant ship still orbited the planet, but now it was joined by human ships. The fear that had first greeted the aliens was replaced by curiosity and excitement. Han stood at the window of the new International Space Station. Twice as large as the old one, it had been built with Viridian help. He watched Earth spin below, beautiful and blue. "Still can't believe we're up here?" Day asked, floating up beside him. Han smiled. "A year ago I was just a linguist in a small office. Now I'm in space working with aliens." "Not aliens," said a voice behind them. "Cousins." Han turned to see Mira entering the module. The elderly Viridian moved gracefully in zero gravity. "Cousins," Han agreed. "That's a good word for it." After the revelation that both humans and Viridians shared a connection to the ancestors, everything had changed. The Viridians had withdrawn their demands for Earth's resources. Instead, they offered to share knowledge and technology. Not all Viridians accepted the change. Some, like Arik, returned to their homeworld, unable to accept humans as equals. But others, like Mira, stayed to learn more about their newfound relatives. "The research team is waiting," Mira said. "They found something interesting in the old texts." Han and Day followed Mira to the research section of the station. Here, humans and Viridians worked side by side, studying the history of both species and the mysterious ancestors who had influenced them. In the main research room, Sun and a young Viridian named Yuri were examining holographic images of ancient symbols. "Han, look at this," Sun said excitedly. "These symbols appear in both Viridian temples and Earth's oldest ruins, but we never understood what they meant until now." Yuri, who had become the first Viridian expert in human languages, pointed to the symbols. "They're coordinates," he explained. "Star coordinates." "To what?" Han asked, studying the glowing shapes. "We think they point to the ancestors' home world," Sun said. "Or at least to where they went after leaving our planets." This was huge news. Both humans and Viridians had been searching for clues about the ancestors' origins since discovering their connection. "Have you told the council?" Han asked. "We're preparing the report now," Yuri said, "but we wanted your input first. You started all this after all." Han felt a surge of pride. A year ago, the Viridians had looked down on humans as primitive beings. Now they sought human opinions and expertise. Later that day, Han joined Commander G in a meeting with President Min and Sev, who now served as the Viridian ambassador to Earth. "The coordinates are clear," Sev was saying. "They point to a star, system 30 light-years from Earth." "Can we reach it?" Min asked. "Not with current human technology," G replied. "But the Viridians, our fastest ships could make the journey in 15 Earth years," Sev said. "But we believe working together we could build something faster." "A joint mission," Min said thoughtfully. "Humans and Viridians searching together for our common ancestors." "Exactly," Sev replied. "Our scientists are already discussing the possibilities." As the meeting continued, Han thought about how much had changed. The Viridians had arrived as conquerors, seeing Earth as just another world to claim. Now they were partners, sharing knowledge and resources. Not everything was perfect. Some humans still distrusted the Viridians, and some Viridians still thought humans were beneath them, but most on both sides were trying to move forward together. After the meeting, Han returned to his quarters on the space station. A message was waiting for him. The archaeological team in South America had found something. 2 days later, Han stood in a newly discovered cave deep in the Amazon rainforest. The walls were covered in the symbols of the divine tongue, better preserved than any found before. June, who led the archaeological team, pointed to the center of the cave. "Look at this." In the middle of the floor was a metal disc, untouched by time. It was made of a material unknown on Earth with strange symbols around its edge. "Is it Viridian?" Han asked. "No," said June. "The Viridians say they've never seen anything like it. This might be an actual artifact from the ancestors themselves." Han felt a chill. No one had ever found a physical object from the ancestors before. Only their teachings and language had survived. Within hours, the cave was filled with researchers from both species. The metal disc was carefully removed and taken to a special lab built for studying such discoveries. 3 months later, Han stood with Sun, Ji, Mira, and Sev as scientists activated the disc for the first time. No one knew what to expect. The disc rose into the air, glowing with soft blue light. Then it projected an image above it, a star map unlike any they had seen before. Voice spoke in the divine tongue, the ancient language that had changed everything. Han understood some words, but not all. Sun and Mira, who had become the leading experts in the language, listened carefully. "It's a message," Mira said finally. "From the ancestors." "What does it say?" Ji asked. "They speak of many worlds." Sun translated. "Many children created across the stars. They say they left to create more, but would return when their children were ready." "Ready for what?" asked Han. "To join them," Mira said. "To become part of something greater." The message continued, giving details about the ancestors and their mission to spread intelligent life throughout the galaxy. They described themselves as travelers from beyond the stars, seeking to fill the universe with diverse thinking beings. "They want us to find each other," Sun said as the message ended. "All their children, all the different species they helped create. They want us to learn from our differences and grow stronger together." The disc went dark, but its message remained. The ancestors had not abandoned their children. They had given them a mission. Find each other. Learn together. Prepare for a reunion that would change everything. Later, as Han looked out at the stars from the space station window, he thought about the strange journey that had brought them here. One small discovery, the connection between an ancient Earth language and the Viridian's divine tongue, had changed the course of 2 civilizations. "What are you thinking about?" asked Mira, joining him at the window. "About words," Han replied. "About how powerful they can be." Mira made the gesture that Han now knew was a Viridian smile. "Words connected us. Words from the past that shape our future." Below them, Earth turned peacefully. Above them, the stars beckoned with new mysteries to solve. And somewhere out there, the ancestors waited for their children to find each other and grow wise enough to join them among the stars. Han spoke softly in the divine tongue, words he had learned from the ancient cave. "Endar Korath Velim Santhar." "We are all travelers on the same path." "Yes," Mira agreed. "We are." Together, human and Viridian looked out at the universe that had suddenly become much larger, much more interesting, and much more full of hope than either had imagined before.